6, I call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara Airport Commission Wednesday, April 15th, and would like to have a roll call, please.
Carl Hopkins.
Here.
Bruce Miller.
Here.
Craig R. Curry. Dolores Johnson.
Here.
Karen Kahn.
Here.
Kirk Martin. Jim Wilson.
Here.
Any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Any public comment?
No public comment slips.
Notices on April 9th at 5:30, the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this notice on the bulletin board. Minutes. May I have the recommendation is that the Airport Commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, March 18th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent calendar, we have 5 leases, and the property management report. Might I have the recommendation is that the Airport Commission receive the monthly property report and approve the 5 lease agreements.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And liaisons, I see our City of Goleta, Councilmember Michael T. Bennett. What do you have to say to us today, sir?
As I stated at the last meeting that we were going to, move the freeway and do all that stuff, well, that stuff all got done. Los Caneros opened, I believe, on the day they said that it was going to open, and everybody seems to be moving well. I even got a couple of nice compliments, which is huge. That didn't occur during the construction. And I did notice there is a detour sign for the airport between Fairview and Patterson, letting people know to get off at Patterson, then, do the big loop, come around and get on the 217 and come back. So that was set in motion. I don't know if there's another one on the other side of Los Caneros to suggest that's also an option. I haven't checked that out yet. But I will.
There is.
There is.
Caltrans did really good.
Great, thank you. And I do not see our City of Santa Barbara, so we will go to the administrative reports. Item 10 is the FAA optimization of airspace and procedures in the Metroplex.
Well, and you certainly know I'm not doing this presentation. We have 2 experts here. We have Kelly Canas, Operations Supervisor, and Mr. Tracy Lincoln, Ops Manager, will do the presentation tonight.
I will do the introduction and let Kelly walk you through the slides. Neither of us are actual experts in this. Some of you pilots may know more about it than us, but we did get
Is your mic on?
I'm sorry. We did get a presentation a while back from the FAA, and then I attended a public meeting in Los Angeles a couple of months ago. So what this program is a kind of a redesign of airspace, a large section of airspace from our coast pretty much to Phoenix, down to the Mexican border and up quite a ways. Kelly will show you, but they're redesigning airspace to incorporate the new navigational capabilities we have that everybody refers to as next gen with the satellite base. So they're in redoing the airspace, they're finding ways to wrap in the use of all the new equipment, the next gen equipment, so it can all be implemented. And it's called, well, it's got an odd acronym. I'll get it wrong, but that's what they're doing in a nutshell. And Kelly will have more info about it. I may add a few things here and there, and there may be some questions we can't answer, but let's do the presentation because it is a very big project that will impact all of the airspace and pretty much all of the pilots that fly in it.
Thanks, Tracy. So as Tracy mentioned, the project has been most commonly known as the Metroplex, and there's different areas throughout the state and then throughout the country there's currently Metroplex projects going on. They have recently updated the name to the OAPM, the optimization of airspace and procedures, getting a little away from that Metroplex title. But we're going to go with that because that's what the common name is for it. So what is a Metroplex? It's basically a geographical area covering several different airports. So for our area, we'll go through the airports, the primary airports that are included. It basically assesses the area and all the stakeholders. So anyone using the National Airspace System, the FAA, businesses, aircraft, airlines. And like Tracy said, the FAA is really focusing on the next-gen capabilities to change and upgrade the way air traffic control manages and coordinates all the air traffic. So by optimizing the airspace and procedures, we're going to get a lot of benefits. It's going to take into account all the different airports and better coordinate the traffic between airports. There's many factors involved: safety, capacity, efficiency, and definitely there's an environmental impact to this that makes the process rather lengthy, but it's very thorough. So specifically, the SoCal Metroplex is looking at different arrivals and departure procedures. Again, like I said, better coordinating and better linking the airports and the traffic coming in and out in the SoCal area. It is important to note that these impacts are not going to create any new ground disturbances, and they're also not anticipated to change any of the numbers of aircraft operations. So it'll make operations more perform better, but it's not going to give us any more or less, they're predicting. So the map here shows you the SoCal area, the SoCal Metroplex. ZLA you see on the map is LA Center for air traffic control, and SCT is Southern California TRACON, which is a smaller area in there. And you can see that the area it starts down at the border, goes up midway up the Central Coast, and then out to the east, encompassing part of Nevada and Arizona. So the next-gen implementation, like I said, is going to focus on major metropolitan areas. So we have a SoCal Metroplex. There's a Northern California Metroplex. All over the country, there's different areas, primarily around the larger cities. I know the DC Baltimore Metroplex is up and running. They're having a lot of success with it. Also, Dallas Houston area is also up and running as well. So one of the primary pieces to this is promoting RNAV, which is area navigation. So it's basically the idea of taking navigation from really limited point-to-point navigation to a more open system where the pilot has more control and decision-making on where they want the flight path to extend. It also includes required navigational performance, which is a little different from RNAV. It's encompassed in RNAV, but it's where specific aircraft with certain performances can implement certain procedures. One of the upgrades with this is that it will start allowing adjacent operations at different airports. So in the past, when you had adjacent or simultaneous operations, there was a lot of limitations. This will allow more aircraft to operate in the closer area with a higher level of safety. So this is basically just a brief timeline of all of the Metroplex projects, the process that they go through. You can see it starts out with a study, continues into design and procedure. By far the biggest piece is the operational and the environmental review, which is the stage that we're in now, where for the SoCal Metroplex, we're at the end of that process. Implementation and training is next, and then post-implementation is at the end with any reviews and modifications that will come out.
Excuse me, you said we're currently where?
I'll show you at the end. The last slide has a flow of our process. So a little more information on the basics. We're basically, the air traffic control in the system is going to focus on the whole area, not just a specific airport. You can see there at the bottom, they've really closely looked at the operations at the major airports, or the busiest airports in the SoCal Metroplex area. They do include Santa Barbara Airport in that, and a lot of the other smaller airports. These are the airports that got the primary focus and evaluation. So this is a diagram basically of the current NavAid system, and then RNAV in the middle, and RNP off to the right. So you can see to the left, with the current NavAids, it's not very efficient, obviously. RNAV makes it a little more efficient with waypoints and more smooth connectivity, whereas RNP, is much more seamless. However, that's going to be limited to aircraft that can perform at the level of the routes and arrivals and departures required for those procedures.
Real quick regarding RNP, once additional aircraft are equipped with that and it becomes more common, that's going to enable them to introduce some of these kind of slowly curved descent arrival and departure tracks that you've heard so much about for so many years.
And we actually have a picture of those here to give you an overview. So there's two lines there. The green dashed line is the existing flight paths. So this would be an example of a descent. You can see that the aircraft will come down. They have to level off. They'll get a clearance at an altitude. Then they're cleared a little lower. They'll have to level off again. So you can see there's a lot of stair steps exactly involved in that descent process. The optimized process is much more streamlined. You can see there's a blue line there. It's a little harder to see. With that process, there's much fewer steps down, and it's going to be a more continuous, gradual process with the aircraft exerting less power and ultimately saving fuel. And basically the same for the optimized climb. However, it should have a pretty significant fuel savings on departures. So some of the benefits, as I mentioned, is the cost savings in fuel, as well as the reduced environmental impacts from less fuel being expended. The other benefits are air traffic control complexity being reduced a little bit. One of the key things I think is really important is that it'll reduce some of the communication. When the flight tracks are simpler, there'll be less communication and less chance for error between pilots or controllers. It's also going to reduce the pilot workload.
Are those figures industry-wide or?
That's specific to our area, so the SoCal Metroplex area. And
for
it's
all users?
Yes, and it's an estimate. FAA generated estimate. So in our last slide here, you can see a little more detail on the process. So we are right now on the second line down to the right, working on the draft or finishing the draft EA. And I say we, it's the FAA. The airport is not involved in this process yet. There will be a public comment period. We'll be involved in listening, offering input where we can. And ultimately we plan, or the FAA plans to have this implemented next spring.
One other note on this project is some of the team members working on this project for flight procedures are familiar with our airport and our noise situation, and they actually gave me a call one day just right out of the blue to let me know, we're coming down for a meeting, and before we get here, we're working on trying to see if we can get your noise procedures, working within these new approach capabilities. They were not able to do it because, as you pilots know, our noise procedures for the high-performance aircraft are pretty tight. The turns are tight. It's a small open field they're heading for. They weren't able to get the noise procedure to fit within the allowable parameters, but I just thought it was nice that they gave it a good try because they wanted to do what they could to help us get as many aircraft on that as possible. So we still have great success rate with voluntary compliance, but it is a tight approach, and they weren't able to work it within the parameters.
So what you're saying is that the current guidelines will remain in place. It's just that you won't have that kind of smooth transition from the optimized plan into the noise abatement procedures? Is that what you're?
Yeah, we're not planning on changing any of our noise abatement procedures. They tried to get an approach that would go right into our existing procedure and literally replicate it, but they just couldn't do it with the banks and the altitude restrictions. Are there any questions?
Oh, okay. Well, if you're done, I did have a question. Is it premature to assess if there's going to be any impact on our local TRACON, the regional controllers in that facility, in terms of staffing or their operation?
I don't believe it's supposed to reduce the staffing by any means, but it should lighten the workload or make it a little simpler for them to communicate with pilots.
Because we won't have as many transactions.
Correct. Less communications, less transmissions between the pilot and the
Okay.
controller.
So we would continue to expect to be served by the local TRACON at the lower elevations in this
Correct.
region. Yeah. They're very good and friendly.
Good job.
Where's Todd when
Yes,
you
they
need
do.
him?
Any other questions? That's the end. Thank you very much. This is very interesting and informative. I find it interesting. It's the first I had heard of it, and I thought I subscribed to just about every aviation piece of information available, so this is excellent. There also happens to be, right now, over in the Visitors Center, a controller and pilots meeting, which
Oh.
is unfortunately scheduled at the same time, so maybe they were bringing that out also.
And that controller pilot meeting, we spoke to them about that. They didn't realize it was a commission meeting, and they know we
Yes.
have people that attend, so they said, well, they'll make sure not have that happen again.
Right. Okay, item 11 is a proposed operating budget for fiscal 16-17.
That's correct. And this evening, Tom Bullers, our admin analyst, will make the presentation on the budget as soon as Mabel gets it loaded. There we go.
Good evening, Airport Commissioners. This is our budget presentation on the FY 16-17 operating budget. We're going to walk you through a department overview, significant issues affecting our budget, what we did to try to balance our budget, a little more detail on our FY 16 proposed budget, and key performance objectives. So the department's mission, as the Tri-County region's airport of choice, Santa Barbara Airport will be self-sustaining, exceed expectations for safety and quality service, and meet the air transportation and economic development needs of its customers and partners. This is something we like to keep in mind when we're doing our budget. The airport is an enterprise fund, which means that we are financially self-sustaining and we don't accept any local tax dollars. All of our revenues are from user fees and rents. Again, no local tax dollars are used here, so that's important to remember. The airport is divided into 8 programs. They run the full gamut of running an airport. And we do have a lot of properties here too, so the business and property management is maybe unique to this airport compared to some other airports. Breakdown of staffing, we have 55 full-time equivalent employees. About 82% of our staff are in maintenance, certain ops, and security, so really on the operations side of the airport. So our fiscal year 2016 budget, as some of you may know, we've had some passenger declines in the last number of years. This chart is really good because you can see how enplanements at Santa Barbara Airport has really kind of tracked with general trends in the economy and nationwide passenger boardings until recently. At the end of the last recession, national boarding started climbing again, and the airport continued to dip. This is a little more detail on the last 20 years. FY14 was the lowest number of enplanements we've had since 1996. And from our peak, that was about a 26.2% decline to what we're projecting for FY15. Similarly, air traffic operations have declined significantly, about 40% from our peak in calendar year 97 to 2014. And these are important because they affect all of our revenue sources, from landing fees to terminal rents and concessions and car rentals, parking, etc. Some specific assumptions for this budget. Frontier left in January, but United and Alaska are increasing Some of their capacity, Alaska with extra flights, United with some bigger planes. We think that they'll about offset each other, the loss of Frontier and United Alaska. We assumed some continued stability for the general aviation community in terms of fuel flowage and landings, et cetera. And then we assume 5% increases in airline rates and charges. So some of the specific actions to budget balance the budget in FY16, again, increasing airline rates and charges, 5% for landing fees and for terminal rentals. The boarding bridge usage actually declined very significantly, or usage increased significantly, which drives a decrease in boarding bridge fees. And then we're also looking at an ARF reduction, and we'll get into a little more detail on that later. And then just to kind of put it in context of things that we did for this fiscal year, we closed long-term Lot 2 and the shuttle. We increased the parking rate there by $1. We don't use it, so it doesn't really affect our revenue. We increased fuel flowage fees last year and also instituted a new fuel flowage fee for the airlines, the commercial airlines. And again, we increased airline rates and charges. This is a brief summary of projected revenue for FY15. It's up a bit, and a lot of that can be attributed to the rental car companies. We've had more rentals than we anticipated. We typically budget at the minimum annual guarantee, but the rental car usage seems to be tied more to the economy than enplanements, which is good for us right now. And also some the landing weights in the GA community have increased, and the FBOs have indicated that we've had about the same number of planes, but they're bigger, heavier planes, so more landing fees. For FY16, taking all of that into account, we're projecting or budgeting about $16.2 million in revenue. You can see it's almost a third between our commercial industrial leases, commercial aviation leases, and terminal leases, and then the remainder's non-commercial aviation, which is really our general aviation community. And interest is continued to be low, and we don't project that to increase any in the next 2 years. On the expenditure side for FY15, this is slightly above what we had budgeted, and that's due to the capital transfers. We're looking at possibly funding the design and permitting for the Northside development before the sale of DRI goes through. But we have had, on the positive side, we've had some vacancy savings in salaries and benefits, probably about $300,000 by the time the year ends.
And just to add, under supplies and services, that's the location for the 2 interdepartment agreements that we have with the fire department for the 9 positions in ARF, and then also the 2 public works engineers that we have in planning here at the airport.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the general aviation user fee to get a badge to get onto the airport for access to your airplane has basically doubled. Now it's a yearly cost as opposed to I guess once every 2 years. Is that a TSA mandated thing, or is that do those fees go to us, or do they go to the TSA?
I'll have Tracy answer.
Those fees go to us, and it was not mandated across the board. But we did implement certain badges to go annual instead of 2.
Is there a reason for that, or you're just looking for money?
There is a reason. It has to do with some consistent training record requirements and just trying to reduce our number of unaccounted for badges that we run across when they start getting too long. But we're actually, we're speaking right now about trying to do our best to limit that. So we may be going back. I'm talking to the FAA about a couple of their concerns.
It would be nice to see it go back to that. I think that's, given that we have hefty enough fees for the GA population to be sticking them with $25 every year just for a badge that they have to buy. I'd like to see it go back to what it was.
We would like that as well. It's just so you know we're on the same page there.
And I would comment that the comments I've had from pilots, not only is the $25 irksome, but it's the process and the time that it takes to do the process and to gather the documents and to go to one person to get proof that you are who you say you are, and then to schedule an appointment, and then to get over there and then to go through it is actually more irksome even than the $25, which is irksome enough. So certainly an awful lot of complaints I've heard from going from 2 years down to 1, and going back to 2 would be wonderful. 3 would be even better.
Yeah, I doubt we're going to get to 3, but we're looking for 2, and we have streamlined the process. So if we don't get back to 1, there's a little less work. But yeah, we hear you.
But those procedures are set by TSA, is that correct? And the audit required is by TSA?
Yeah, that's correct.
Some additional expenditure requests that we included in the FY16 budget. A new AOA paint striper. The current one is non-functioning. And doing the work ourselves saves us quite a bit of money. We paint the center lines 2 or 3 times a year, 3 times a year.
3 or 4.
And we've gotten quotes that are around $12,000 for one painting, so it's a pretty quick payback on that. That's just for the center line, not all the other lines that we have. A couple proposed staffing changes, and these were approved by the city attorney or the city administrator. Our current maintenance superintendent to a maintenance manager. Right now, the operations manager supervises 40 staff, and this will reduce that so that the maintenance manager will be supervising 20 people, and the operations manager will be supervising 20 people. So it should improve the span of control. And an admin analyst 1 to 2, and that's based on increases in duties. And the numbers there are net increases for those positions. And then an ARF staffing adjustment, which we'll talk about now. So a brief overview of ARF history at Santa Barbara Airport. July 1990, the city took over fire services from the county fire department. The airport funded via AIP funds construction of Airport Station 8 and also purchase of ARF apparatus. In the last couple of years, with the budget issues that the airport has faced, city administrator requested that the airport department and fire department jointly fund a study of ARF services to evaluate possible means of reducing costs, but also maintaining fire best practices. The airport and fire department did commission that study, and the results were published in September 2014. So briefly, ARF, FAA requires Part 139 airports to provide ARF. Index levels are based on the average daily departures and the length of the aircraft, so 5 daily departures at a particular length, the longest length of aircraft. Santa Barbara Airport's current air service, Index B. We haven't had Index C aircraft since the early 1990s. And an Index B level would require only 1 firefighter. So the consultant, when they did their review, they found that the fire department met and exceeded all FAA requirements. They cited some examples for training, communications, planning. They also said that the current staffing of 1 fire captain and 2 fire engineers exceeds the FAA required index level B by 2 firefighters and would exceed index level C by 1 firefighter. That would be the next index level that the airport would go to. And they also recommended that minimum daily staffing of firefighters should be 2 firefighters. It shouldn't actually be the 1 that the FAA recommends. And also noted that given the risks and premier status of Santa Barbara, that 3 firefighters would not be out of the national norm. They also provided some cost reduction options. Number 1, the general fund pays a 3rd firefighter because the airport does provide some economic and tourism benefits to the city. Number 2, reduce that 3rd firefighter position completely. And number 3, reduce that 3rd firefighter position to core flying hours. Since the airport is an enterprise fund, we wanted to avoid a general fund subsidy, so kind of ruled out option number 1. Option number 3 is not feasible based on current airline schedules, which leaves us option number 2. And the staff recommendation for that is a transition from 3 firefighters 24/7 currently to 2 firefighters 24/7. And that transition would occur via attrition by mid-year of next fiscal year 16. And then there would be a full year savings in FY17. Almost $250,000 for the half year and almost $600,000 for FY17. And then we would evaluate future needs based on funding availability and or increases in air service. This is currently included in our budget submittal. The city administrator and finance department recommended that we include this. So this is slightly different from what you have in your packets. In terms of our fiscal year 16 capital budget, we're planning to budget for our AIP grant match. It's about $314,000. That would be for the airfield electrical and safety rehabilitation project. We're also proposing to fund our AIP change order authority. Right now we have to front that money. The FAA requires us to do that. It's about 10% of our total grant, and we would use this in a revolving account sort of way so that we would only fund it once and then hopefully not have to do it again, depending on whether or not change orders were approved or disapproved by FAA. $375,000 for permitting design activities related to development on the north side. $350,000 for lessee building maintenance, including 1440 and 1550 Cecil Cook Place, and then our sort of general maintenance program for HVAC and roofs and painting, all the needs of our buildings. Some money for street maintenance and AOA pavement maintenance, and $50,000 for the Goleta Slough title restoration, which was one of the conditions of the 2006-2007 airfield safety projects, permit condition from Coastal Commission.
Excuse me, does that include the Elephant Bar, if we can keep calling it that, the High Sierra Grill restaurant work?
That's funded this year. We funded it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
When you take all of that into account, our proposed expenditures for FY16 are about $17.2 million. Supplies and expenses includes our interdepartmental agreements with Public Works for our engineers and also the fire department for ARF. But again, this includes those reduced ARF costs of almost $250,000 for FY16. And the equipment budget includes the request for the striper, and supplies or salaries and benefits also reflects the increase to for the 2 position requests that we had. Looking back at 2014 actuals through 2017, I just wanted to highlight a couple things here. The terminal rentals, as I said before, the rental cars have been exceeding expectations, and parking has dipped quite a bit from 2014 with some of our loss of passengers, but those 2 things have kind of evened out, and they're sort of steady across the years. And then there's a few percentage increase from our FY15 projected to 2016 proposed and 2017 proposed. In terms of expenditures, for the reduction of the shuttle, you can see under special projects in 2014, we spent almost $465,000. That was a part year shuttle operation. We closed it in April, so we saved quite a bit of money. And then going forward, that's just to pay for shuttle leases, which we're
Hopefully
actively.
getting those terminated, if not this month, next month.
In terms of equipment, there's a little bump this year. We replaced PCs throughout the whole department. Next year includes the striper for $80,000, and then it returns back to a more historical trend number of just under $60,000. The capital FAA transfers, those are the projects we talked about a little bit. FY17, that includes the grant match for FAA and $500,000 in what we would call routine maintenance sort of projects, lessee building maintenance and street maintenance, et cetera. The bottom line, we project in 2015, this fiscal year, that we'll be in the black about $270,000, and again, that's mainly due to some vacancy savings and also some increased revenue from GA and rental cars. Next year, this budget proposal has us using almost $1 million in reserves, and then in FY17, using a touch of reserves.
And this is assuming the ARF reduction?
Correct.
That's correct.
Oh, and the capital FAA transfers, the big jump in 2016 is for?
All of these projects.
So it's not all FAA, it's FAA
And
and capital.
capital.
Airport-funded capital projects.
Okay.
So it's just blended on that one line.
So these sum to a little over $1.5 million. It's a little less than $1.5 million here because we had some savings from our AIP change order authority this year that we didn't use.
Can we stay on this slide for a minute?
Yes.
Unless you've got something more detailed on salaries and benefits. Yeah, kind of sorry we didn't get into this in more detail in the subcommittee, and these numbers have changed even from what went out in the agenda packet.
Yes.
So salary and benefits, which does not include ARF, there you've got an increase of now in the agenda packet it was about a $610,000 increase next year from this year. Here we've got an increase of $5.3 million to $6 million, and you've presented, like under $100,000 of, reclass type of activity. Your cost projection assumption was like 4%. This is, that's over 10% increase in salaries and benefits. So could you kind of delve into what's driving that?
Go ahead.
The FY15 budget was closer to $5.7 million, but because we've had those vacancies for like the Hazel's old position and Desi's position and some vacancies in maintenance, we've saved about $300,000. So the FY15 projected is about $300,000 less than the budget. So if you go from the budget number of 5.7 to 6 million,
I'm sorry, you said 300 less than budget, so your budget was
about
5.7.
5.7, yeah.
So you're still looking at a 300,000 increase.
Correct.
And so you had, your total in reclassifications was,
28,000, I think, for
28,000.
FY16, yeah.
The cities, through the MOUs with the different unions at the city, July 1st, I believe, well, July 1st for some, and later in the year for other unions, they're awarding a 3% cost of living increase. So that's factored in along with the increase in health insurance and PERS. So salary-wise, since it's salary and benefits, the biggest increase is in PERS and health insurance.
and that gets you to, well, so one of the assumptions here is you're filling the vacancy. Is that right?
This
Yeah.
is just fully funding all 55.5 positions in the department. So the city goes ahead and fully funds them at the
Mhm.
beginning of the fiscal year. And if they remain vacant, then you just accrue the salary savings.
Right, and you've got your COLA basically, and then you've got your increases in just the benefits programs. I'm still having a little trouble getting to that number, which is, again, higher than what you presented in the packet even. Not hugely, but, well, I guess.
So the packet that you have was the department's proposed budget, which didn't include that request. We were directed by our finance department not to include those until they were approved by the city administrator.
I see.
So we met with the city administrator after our budget subcommittee meeting. And these numbers reflect the city administrator and finance review of the budget. So there are a few changes. So salary and benefits is one of them because they did approve that request, and that was an increase of about $28,000. We worked to reduce our allocated costs. Those are reduced about $18,000, I think. Overall supplies and services are down because of the ARF reduction from what you have there. And those should be the most significant changes that were made.
We can certainly get you more detailed information on salaries and benefits by line item and by program, if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only person who will ask for that.
Be happy to do that.
I think it's something, particularly since you're projecting ending up this year at, roughly 600,000 below what you're proposing for next year, which is about, that's about 10%.
And if you look at the $269,000 that falls to the bottom, the majority of that is salaries and benefits savings. So, but I do understand. I mean, it does, we probably could have had a column that showed budget for 2015, then projected, and then compare budget to budget. And we can certainly provide you that.
Right, but certainly when things get tough, people start looking at what you actually spent and not what you had originally budgeted.
Correct.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
The salary savings is true for FY14 as well. We also had some significant salary savings.
Big time.
Big time, yeah, around, I think, $300,000 or $400,000 as well.
okay, I'll let you go on, thank you.
Some of our key performance objectives for next year, this is broken down by program. In the administration program, develop a financial and logistical plan to relocate the FBOs. Moving the FBOs as part of the master plan and And we realize we have some financial difficulties right now, so we really need to look at how we do that in detail. We also have some objectives related to the sale of property to direct relief, preliminary design and discretionary permits, and preparing the legal documents related to that sale. In the business and property program, a lot of written procedures related to tenant alterations and improvements, rent delinquencies, lease compliance issues, making sure that our tenants are complying with the business license and insurance requirements, and also looking at our methodology for utility rates and charges. In marketing and communications, promoting our Thanks Again program, hopefully to engage more passengers in Ventura County, reduce some of our leakage there, start getting people into the historic terminal for event rentals, and expanding our social media platform. For facilities maintenance, completing repairs over at the restaurant facility. By January, we're hoping to get it done a lot sooner than January. Installing a new roof and replacing HVAC equipment at Building 223. Implementing our general industrial stormwater compliance plan. And on the AOA, developing an airfield safety training program. In the security group, they're trying to create a combined consolidated notice of violation form. On the certain ops side, now that they have a new manager, I think they're really reviewing their, going to start reviewing their policies and procedures and updating them as needed. And they're also developing and conducting training sessions for terminal employees on building emergency plan procedures. In the facilities planning group, one of the objectives is to complete construction of the airfield electrical safety project. That's one of our AIP projects. And also get through the process of awarding a contract for the next AIP project, which is general aviation ramp rehabilitation and taxiway E and K improvements. Adopting the airport master plan by December of this year. Submitting our wildlife hazard management plan to the FAA, and submitting permit applications to appropriate regulatory agencies for design of the Goleta Slough Adaptive Mouth Management Project that minimize impacts to endangered species.
Is the taxiway Echo and Kilo, is that as proposed in the master plan? Is that the improvements that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We met with the airport budget subcommittee early in March, and they recommended that the airport commission recommend council approval of the FY 16-17 budget, and that's what we'd ask you to do today.
Bright lights.
Any questions?
Lots of information, I know.
Do you wish to comment on yesterday's meeting?
It was a thorough discussion, I believe, of the airport's declining passenger traffic and the impacts to our budget and potential use of policy reserves, and the option to adjust the ARF staffing to exceed FAA standards while still maintaining best practices. Some on council were concerned about safety, and so they directed staff to take that discussion to the Finance Committee of City Council for further discussion. And then I'm sure we'll discuss it again when we go for our budget presentation to council on May 13th. And I appreciate Commissioner Miller, Hopkins, and Wilson attending and making comments on our behalf.
So, assuming we were to approve this, the city finance committee will still be refining this, is that correct?
Actually, it's not uncommon for changes to occur right up until the date that council approves the budget in June. Because once departments go to council, then they could recommend changes to what's been submitted by the city administrator in the overall budget, pulling out projects, putting new projects in. So there will be changes up until the very end.
And there will be more discussion on the ARF reduction approach.
I
that-
believe so, yes.
Right. Well, I would just say, as I mentioned yesterday, I think most of us here understand that, safety here, there's a lot of facets to safety, including your own staff and maintenance items such as pavement condition and lighting and signage, and all of that adds to safety. I think ultimately, though, it may be a tough sell to reduce a ARF position. And it concerns me that there might be a perception that there's, we have what on the face of it would appear to be a larger, about a 10% from actuals increase in salary and benefits in there. So I think we need to continue to look at ways to deal with that on this side as well. Because I think it is, I think it is important to maintain all the aspects that lead into safety, and we don't want to compromise programs that will kind of help in our own economic recovery. Obviously, we need to continue to do the marketing. We need to continue to reach out to the airports, the airlines, and we certainly don't want our quality of service to the customers to decline to the point where people seek alternatives either, because that's just kind of the death spiral. We don't want to get there. But I do think that I suspect there's going to need to be some refinement here, and obviously, as with most organizations, staffing is where, the majority of the money is. So
We did, Commissioner Miller, we took a look at coming up with the same dollar amount, around $600,000 in salaries, and that would really equate to about 10 positions in the
I
airport.
understand, yeah, we've certainly been there. I think there's going to need to be some alternatives looked at if, as we, may happen, that it's not found to be an acceptable solution. And, I don't have a problem with this going forward, because I understand that there's going to be continual refinements. What the numbers you presented here aren't exactly what we have in the packet, not by a huge difference. But so, what we're approving is what was in the packet, or with modifications, or?
I would suggest that that you recommend the budget as tweaked or amended since the budget subcommittee meeting. Recognizing, as we discussed, there probably will be other changes before it's finalized. But the general overall concept of the budget and the capital improvement program that we've selected, that's the part to be recommended. And certainly you can forward comments to the city administrator for council's consideration on the airport's budget. I know in the past, Airport Commission has done that directly with emails or letters to the city administrator. And those will be passed on to city council.
Are we going to get the opportunity to see the final before it goes to city council, or are they the ones that do the final?
They anticipate, I believe it's next Tuesday, they're filing the city's budget. And ours, of course, is just one department out of 12. So they will be filing it next week. So this, what you have tonight, the numbers that you received tonight, is the most recent allocation of funds for that budget. And all I can say is we'll stay tuned as
what I
we go forward, and we'll
Okay.
keep updating you either through email directly to let you know what's going on, or certainly invite you to the May 13th meeting if you're available.
Well, I would just say, we have every confidence in your ability to manage this. You've, pulled a lot of rabbits out of the hat before, so.
Well, and
They're pretty scarce right now.
I would comment that I would suggest that chart have the budget number added in there so that the number doesn't look so large. I think almost all of the departments, probably all of the departments in the city during the recession took significant vacancies. And I believe that, I know that that hurts the operation of every one of those budgets. The service is not as good. Things are not as safe. It's not a desirable way to proceed. I believe over the last year or so, a number of departments have recovered, so to speak, and I think it's reasonable that the airport also recover. I don't think, I certainly am not aware of the proposed staffing being, excessive in any fashion, and I think that to the best of your ability, you should, make that clear that if you do reduce staffing to cut out, to some of that money, it's going to have a very significant impact. Significant impact on the safety, on the maintenance of the facility. We don't want to have a brand new terminal that looks like it's an old terminal. We don't want to have lights out and electrical problems and signage wrong and pavement not maintained and striping. All of those things are extremely important, and it's also important that things such as the master plan proceed, that the buildings be maintained. You don't maintain the buildings, the tenants are going to move out, and then we're going to be in worse shape. I think it would help somewhat to show that budget number, so you can say, some of this is just returning to normal required staffing, and some of it is out of your control. If my math in my head there is right, if you were to do the budget to the budget, it'd be about a 5% increase. And if you take a 3% COLA, I can easily see another 2%, even more, between retirement PERS costs. We all read in the paper about how what financial mess they're in, as well as healthcare costs, which we all know go up way more than 2 or 3% per year. So I hope that you'll be able to get this budget through. The way I read yesterday's meeting seemed to be, they weren't in favor of ARF, but for some reason they didn't mind dipping into reserves. I personally think that's not the best decision, but I hope that it will, at least in the short term, come down to one of those two and not, oh, well, you'll just do a lousy job with, or a worse job because you don't have the resources to do a good job. But I agree with Mr. Miller that I have every confidence in you and the staff, and I also know that the budget will probably change a half dozen times in the next, whatever it is, 30 days.
That's true. And I think, just to echo what you were saying about the runway and the lights and the striping, those repairs and maintenance, they're mandated by FAA because we're a certificated airport. We can't not do them. If we don't do them, we close the airport. I mean, that's how simple it is. So, Tracy?
There's a lot of additional things as well, but I think you both stated it quite well. There's a lot of elements to the total safety picture. Many of those elements happen every day, whether it's us hazing birds or getting out on that runway, because any pothole greater than 5 inches diameter or deeper than 3 inches shuts the entire runway down. So, yeah, there's a lot of elements that need to be considered that haven't been completely discussed.
Can we get that attached to roads around here also?
We can refer that to Public Works.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I think it's very appropriate to budget for funding full staffing and recognize that the 2015 number and the 2016 are not apples to apples. The 2015 is based on projected actuals, where the 2016 is based on full staffing. And so I think that explains a great amount of that difference. And with the recognition that the budget that we approved tonight as submitted is probably not going to be what will be approved by the city, I would move that the commission approve this budget as presented tonight.
Thank you.
I have a motion. Is there,
Second.
have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Director's report.
Very briefly, I'm glad Sean is here. I just wanted to mention the Collins Foundation Wings of Freedom tour. Sean, do you want to have any comments for that? No comments, okay. But they're coming to the airport again this year, May 1st through the 3rd. And Sean's going to be hosting them at Above All Aviation. So we're really excited about that. Get in line for your tickets because I'm sure they'll be doing flights again. And also, we started an ad campaign to promote the second flight on Alaska Airlines to Seattle, and as well, we're plugging Portland too, and it's Just Fly. Just fly, that's all we want you to do. The master plan, we're still working on updating the traffic study. We had some information from the city of Goleta, and we're incorporating their comments and their request into that study, and hopefully that should be done, I would think, within a month or less, and then we'll continue to get the environmental document through the administrative review process and out on the street for review. I think that's just about it. Passenger count is still down and will continue to be down. Hopefully it'll be less down in after this month, because then American will have been gone for a full year. And so part of that loss will kind of close the gap some, I hope. So we'll see.
Are load factors still very high?
Extremely high, extremely high. Alaska is close to 93, 94%.
Would it maybe be something that's reasonable to add load factors to
Surely.
this report?
We can certainly do
can't,
that.
in a sense, do anything about the number of flights that the airlines schedule, but as long as our load factors are high, I'd say the marketing aspect is doing as good a job as it can do.
Certainly. That would be a good information line item. We'll do that.
Anything else? Then we are adjourned.
Thank you.